afternoon, everyone. I am Samantha Mowat. I'm a clairvoyant psychic and a contactee, and today I'd like to share with you an encounter that I had when I was 16. Now, during this encounter, it was kind of interesting in the sense that where I grew up for part of my childhood with having divorced parents was with one of my parents. We lived on a farm, and not just your standard farm where everyone has like 5-acre lots. I'm talking about a farm that was several miles up a dirt logging road, and my parents, well, my mom and my stepdad, they had a 50-acre parcel of land that had absolutely no neighbors. And this is a really isolated spot to grow up. And in a sense it was wonderful because for us it gave us the chance to really grow up without being addicted to technology. Whenever we were there, we didn't have the chance to watch TV or to play video games because we had a generator and solar panels and a water wheel, stuff that most people don't really have and didn't really have at that time. So it helped to make things a very green existence, but when you're a teenager it's fresh hell. But that's okay. So you're probably wondering, okay Sam, why is this relevant? Why are you going into this? What's so important about this? Well, one day when I was quite young, around 16 or so, my family decided we were going to go on a bike ride up our logging road. And so we go down our driveway, we're biking for maybe an hour or so, just doing this really big loop. And while this is happening, I remember having a lot of fun with it because we had a very large dog at the time and he was with us and he was running alongside. And I remember my mom and my sister and my stepdad, we all got to the top of the hill, and I remember we could have this really good view of the valley. We could see the mountains in the distance, we could see almost where the areas have been clear cut in that area. We could really see quite a fair ways. And I remember as we were looking up into the sky, we ended up seeing a craft that time. And it wasn't a very big one, but it was obviously not a helicopter, not a plane. There's no way this was someone's kite, there's no way this was someone's... One second. Thank you, guys. There's no way this was any technology that humans typically have because it was shaped like a craft. It was oval in shape, it was silvery, it was not necessarily reflecting the light, but you could tell that it was very different from the sky. And I remember we stood there for about 5 minutes just looking at it, observing it, being okay with it. And I remember my stepdad and my mom asking us, well, what do you guys think it is? And we're like, well, I don't know. I'm like, could it be a UFO? And my mom's like, yeah, it's a UFO. It's not a big deal. It's just a UFO. And so that was part of how my childhood was a little bit different from a lot of other people's. Growing up with a family who was just more aware of the natural nature of the universe, how they were willing to accept the fact that there are different beings coming to this planet, how we don't know as much as we think we do as a society, and how the universe is so much bigger, actually helped to really secure in my foundation for being very comfortable within ufology, being very comfortable with the multi-dimensional beings and the extraterrestrial beings, which is quite wonderful. Which leads me to something a little more relevant for later that year. Now, what ended up happening was, it was nighttime. Actually, I should go back a little bit, pardon me. Earlier in the day, because we had a farm, we were doing a lot of gardening every day. It was quite easy for us to spend 2 or 3 hours outside in the garden, weeding and tending to the crops and really tending to the animals, which is completely fine. But I remember it being a really hot day. And so when I went to bed that night, I did something completely out of the ordinary for me. I left the door open. And when I left this door open, I remember feeling like it was okay, like I was more protected to leave the door open quite often because it'd be quite common for us to have bears and wolves and cougars coming onto our property and trying to get into our hen house or going after the animals that were in the barn. So things like that we really had to take into consideration. So my mom had always advised us when we were younger not to sleep with the doors open just because of that. But this night felt a little bit different. I felt like it was okay for me to do this. And so I fell asleep on the couch. My sister was across the room on the love seat. And I remember a couple hours later I woke up and it was very, very quiet. It's kind of eerie sometimes when you have craft coming over top of your house and you're having a physical encounter and you're having these beings coming in person, because it's almost like they're able to put down some sort of energetic blanket or barrier that kind of stops a lot of the external noises from coming inwards. It's almost like everything's very eerily quiet. But I still remember feeling the sensation of craft nearby. I still remember waking up and looking and seeing that things were quite bright out and thinking that it was very bright like daytime, but not in such a way that my eyes that were just waking up were feeling as though they were being strained or aggravated. Now, and you're probably wondering, okay, well, why is this relevant? Well, when you're looking at the ET encounters in particular, if you're waking up and you're having very bright lights, then typically for most people, if they have running lights and stuff like that, then it could mean that your motion sensor light went on outside, or traffic, or helicopter, or stuff like that. But it wasn't that kind of lighting. It had a bit more of a subdued aspect to it, although everything was very well illuminated. And as I woke up, I sat up a little bit on the couch, and I remember my blankets going down me, and I looked across the room and I could still see my sister, who was asleep across the room, and she was sleeping peacefully, and I thought, well, that's kind of odd, but the window in our living room over towards the piano had a lot of light coming in, and I could see light back in the hallway, like being behind me, and I could see light coming in through a sliding glass door. And as I'm looking towards the sliding glass door, slowly I start to see this, almost like this appearance of a figure, a bipedal being coming towards me. I remember as this bipedal being was coming towards me, I slowly start to get that very familiar sensation of the exterior of my peripheral starting to close in and things starting to go dark and hazy and me going to that catatonic state. So part of why I'm bringing this part up is I have been asking my guides over the last couple of years, guides, can you please give me more clarity about my experiences? I really wanted to have a very deep and clear understanding of my experiences with the extraterrestrials and multidimensionals. For the parts that I have blanked out, can you please start revealing to me that which has been hidden? Now, you may wonder why I chose the word hidden. Hidden can have a negative connotation, but that's not my intention. Sometimes people hide things, or beings can hide things from you because it can be too much for you to handle mentally at that time. And so it can be important to compartmentalize certain aspects to be revealed at a later date. Sometimes in your evolutionary process, sometimes at a certain age, so on and so forth. And so the next part that was revealed to me by my guides was I had one of my guides come to me. And it was really nice to have this guide come in. He came to me and he brought a binder, and I was astral projected out of my body, so I should mention that part. And I went to a higher dimensional plane. It was very bright, very colorful. I felt completely safe. Everything had more of like an energetic shimmer to it. It felt so loving and very harmonious is a good way to put it. And when this guide and I were sitting down together, he had this big bindery type book, and he's showing me, he's like, so these are part of what you've forgotten. And I looked at it and I'm like, oh my god. Like, I didn't realize I hadn't been unaware of that much. And he's flipping through and he's showing me numerous encounters, and as he's showing them to me, my memories are starting to come back, and I felt overwhelmed and overjoyed. And part of what was revealed to me in that time was my guide showed me almost like, in part, their encounter, or their observation of the encounter, and my observation of the encounter. So seeing things from my perspective, as well as seeing things from their multi-dimensional perspective, as this is a physical encounter occurring. Sorry for waving. Someone's walking by and I was just waving to indicate that I've got dogs here, please keep going. Anyway, so as this was occurring, I was being shown the image from my guide's perspective, and I was being shown me walking out of the house with this being walking me out of the sliding glass door, down onto the deck, down the steps, around the pond, over top of the dam that we had where our water rolls off to the side and our lake on the other, and walking across the stones and the gravel, heading over towards this craft. And as I was doing this, I was then shown the image of me walking up to the craft with this tall being. It was quite lovely. It was Danny, so Danny is more of an Arcturian type being. He is, his skin tone is white. He does have very blue eyes. On occasion they can appear very vibrant and red, but that's completely different. And as I was being walked up towards the silver craft, it was a fair size. It wasn't like a very small craft where you'd only have a couple of people in there. It looked like, how can I explain it? I wouldn't say it was big enough to hold multiple crafts, but I would say that this was a craft that could easily probably hold about maybe 50 or 100 people. And the reason why I make that estimate is the next thing that my guides were showing me with that encounter was I was shown me and Danny standing side by side, and I'm on one side, he's right here, and we're both facing the craft. And as he approaches it, the undercarriage of the craft ended up having almost like this kind of a slant to it, with like being like an ovally type shape. And then from the undercarriage, I see almost like this, imagine this is the undercarriage here, and then I see almost like this section pop out, multiple of them, coming out on an angle like this. Like the section that was holding the exterior had an internal storage area that slid out on an angle. And when this happened, I had a vacant one show up before me. But as I was going to approach this, I felt very comfortable, like this is something I had done many, many times before. And I was looking to the side and I could see men and women, and a lot of them looked very similar in age to me, and some of them I did have a bit of a recognition with, as though I've been abducted with them before. And I thought that was a very significant thing to really mention, because for those of you who are having contact, it is helpful if you're feeling ready, and if you're not concerned that you're going to trigger yourself, and if you're not concerned that it's going to be too much for you, then you can always ask the multidimensional beings that are of the highest vibrational energy, such as the angelic beings, to come in, or even your spirit guides, and to start showing you some of your encounters on a more clear and concise level if you're uncomfortable with undergoing things like hypnosis. For me, I don't really enjoy the hypnotic aspect because I don't like that feeling of being out of control. I've only let two people hypnotize me in regards to my ET encounters. Absolutely wonderful gentlemen, both of them. I'm very grateful for them. They helped to reveal some really important things. But I did a lot of crying after both those occurred, so for me that's not a route I choose to go down, but it may be the one that you choose. Well, I'm going to go walk my dogs more, but it was lovely talking to you, and I hope you have a great day. Peace, love, and light. Bye.